Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good, maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now, last time we obviously discussed Independence Day, which was released in 1996 and became one of the best known disaster films ever made. Now we're going to be talking about another one where I feel like it doesn't get that much attention, and it honestly should, because it's honestly one of the best disaster films in my opinion. And surprisingly enough, it only came out a year after Independence Day. So what film am I talking about exactly? Dante's Peak, released on February 7th of 1997. Now, my history with this film is that I never heard about it when I was a young child. In fact, it was really when I think I honestly kind of started... No, actually, no, this was a few years before I started the channel. And before I started the reviews, and I saw a review about this film from a guy named Oliver Harper, who I've mentioned several times in the past in this series, and I will leave a link down to his review of this in the description below, which you honestly should check out after this review. But he really got me interested into this film, and then I want to say, around last year, I ordered this Blu-ray along with a few others on Amazon, and luckily around that time it was still on Netflix, so, watched it first through Netflix before I ordered it, and at the time I thought it was really good, and then obviously bought the Blu-ray, and I haven't seen it since, because they since removed it off of Netflix, at least in the US, and I just never really had the urge to, really ever since then, to kind of really sit down and watch it. But now I've obviously, sat down and watched this for the review, and it's still really good. So, yeah. Let's go over it, shall we? So, this was made with a budget of $116 million. Domestically, it only made about $67 million. But worldwide, it made over $178 million. So, it was considered to be a modest success. But it didn't do the numbers that, Universal wanted it to make. The reviews at the time were certainly mixed, but leaning more towards the positive. Being, praising, the acting by Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton, and, the fantastic special effects, which I will be going over later. This was directed by Roger Donaldson, who I've never really heard of before doing this review, except that he only I think he only worked on a couple of TV episodes with Pierce, and knew him with liked him in a working relationship, but never as a friend. But then, while on the set for this film, they really grew together as friends, and he would hire him later on to at the time of this recording. I think Roger Donaldson's most recent film was in 2014 called The November Man, which obviously starred Pierce Brosnan. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, when you talk about disaster films, especially from the 90s, the two I feel like that actually come up the most is Independence Day, and obviously, and then Twister, which came out a few months before Independence Day. And then pretty much after that, everyone, all the other disaster films that came out in the mid to late 90s, people talk about them, but not that many people talk about it. Stallone in 96, he did Daylight, which, like this film, did okay at the box office, but I think it got panned more by critics. Then, this film came out in February, and ironically, they were in a rush to get this film done, because there was another film that was coming out the same year as this that had a very similar theme about, erupting volcanoes. And that film is named Volcano. It starred Tommy Lee Jones basically trying to stop this volcanic eruption. Yeah, that film was panned by critics, and I think it failed at the box office. And it's kind of obvious why, because there's no real fucking volcano. It's just fucking lava. And ironically enough, like Oliver Harper said in his review when he did the short snippet about volcano, it really should have been called Lava the movie, because that's what it fucking is. It's like, oh, it's just the lava pouring through the city. There's no fucking volcanoes. But yeah, I'm not gonna bother with Volcano, honestly, because honestly I just heard it as, being trash. So I was just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna just separate myself from that over there. I'm gonna go watch this actually pretty good stuff in terms of disaster films. And now that I'm actually thinking about it, I should have probably addressed real quick. Will I be discussing Independence Day Resurgence on this channel? I don't know. Most likely I will. But it depends, really. Anyway, let's go over the plot, shall we? So after the tragic death of his wife during a volcanic eruption, Dr. Harry Dalton, played by the fantastic Pierce Brosnan, has been remorseful after that event, believing that he could have saved her by evacuating sooner. Harry is now very paranoid and is overly cautious on which assignments to take. Several years later, Harry is assigned by his boss to scope out seismic activity at Dante's Peak, which is a small town situated next to a dormant volcano in the Cascades. After meeting the town mayor, Rachel Wanda, played by the fantastic Linda Hamilton, Harry starts doing his tests and soon discovers that there is a big eruption that the town cannot anticipate. So, yeah, it's your stereotypical, disaster film. So it's like, well, what's really so different about this film that makes it so much better than, like, Independence Day? And I'll explain why. It's really the centerpiece. It's like, well, yeah, it's technically is still on the disaster that happens in the film, but it's not the main set piece. It is the main set piece, but it's not the main focus. The focus is on the characters, which is what I love about these sort of films, where they're like, yeah, let's make these character movies, but then also have the disasters. And like, yes, we are disaster films. These are the big set piece, but our main focus is on the characters, and that's what I love about this film especially. Whereas Independence Day, it just felt like more, yeah, there's characters in it that are trying to stop the bad guys, like the aliens, but the main thing about the movie was, let's blow shit up. Let's blow up iconic, monuments around the world to get asses in the seats. That's what that film felt like, which is why I didn't really connect with the characters, because they were just kind of two-dimensional. I'm just like, yeah, I'm your stereotypical hero. I'm coming in to save the day. Whereas this film, it's like, no, we're going to make these characters three-dimensional. We're going to make you care about them and make you feel scared for them when the disaster happens, which also feels effective. And that's what I love about this film. So, yeah. So let's go over, certain points about the film. Obviously, the main, the thing, we get thrown right into the movie where after, it shows, the director's name and some of the main cast members, we get thrown into the action with a volcanic eruption right at the beginning. And, this town evacuating as the title card shows up, Dante's Peak. That gets you in the mood for a dramatic, disaster film. And that's where I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. Like, I'm ready. We see Harry driving up in his truck, basically telling his love interest that, come on, we have to leave. This is getting too chaotic. We have to go. And she's like, no, like, look at these readings. This is perfect. This is perfect research. And it's like, no, we are going to die here. Let's go. We have all the evidence that we got. Let's get out of here. So she's like, okay. They leave. And then as they're driving by, we see all these, like, volcanic, like, rocks that are coming down, like, breaking, hitting the ground, like hurting people. And, of course, there's one that goes straight into the car, hits his love interest right on the head, and basically causes her to bleed out to death from the head. Basically, yeah, like her head just got split open by a rock, or a volcanic rock to be exact. And yeah, he's been remorseful ever since. And then we get a cut to several years later. I think actually about like 4 years later in the film, and he gets called to, his workplace, basically saying that there's there's something else, like there's something new that you might want to check out. So he arrives and he gets told by his boss, basically that there's some strange activity over by Dante's Peak, which is a small little American town that has recently just won an award for, I think these like one of the most coveted places to live in, with I think it's the second one, with like a population of less than 20,000. Then we get obviously introduced to the mayor, which is played by Linda Hamilton, who obviously before this, real quick, probably, I gotta pull this guy up. Obviously, it was probably most iconic for her role as Sarah Connor in Terminator 1 and 2, which I do plan on covering these for the channel. Don't worry, I still have to get all of them. I actually only recently just got the third one, so I do plan on covering these films. Just give me time. Anyway, she gets introduced to Harry and stuff like that. Everything's cool. Then we get introduced to her mother-in-law, Ruth, and she's the typical kind of like stubborn woman who is just like, I don't want strangers up in here. Our area's fine. You don't need to worry. And sure enough, you need to worry. Whereas, not even 5-10 minutes later, they go to this little like lake area, and they find 2 people boiled to death. Yeah, our town is perfectly fine, where tourists can come in and swim and, not totally get burned to death. Huh. But yeah, and then basically, like, the whole second half, like, the second act of the movie is basically them just sizing up the volcanic, like, the volcano, seeing if there's any seismic activities, stuff like that. Then, they get nothing on the radar. Like nothing, like in terms of like concrete, like holy shit, there's a volcano. Like this volcano is about to erupt. So they're like, yep, we'll just go. We'll just leave. And that's of course when shit starts happening. Which I'll get to. But yeah, let's go over, let's now go over the cast. We just got a little bit more detailed overview of what the film is basically about. We obviously have Harry Dalton, who is played by the fantastic Pierce Brosnan. Actually, now I'm actually thinking about it, this was really, like, before this, he obviously had, several, small roles in, like, 80s films, and stuff like that. But this was only 2 years after his big break in 95 with the fantastic James Bond film, GoldenEye, which I think even still to this day, people are still trying to figure out whether or not this is the best Bond film, with, Skyfall coming up in the, runner-ups, as people saying, like, yeah, that's actually really good, and, it's either this or Skyfall. Anyway. So, yeah, this was only 2 years after, GoldenEye, and probably several months before the next Bond film came out in the same year, Tomorrow Never Dies. So, yeah, he had a lot on his plate during the 90s. And this film kind of just got swept under the rug, while all the other Bond films kind of just standing on top of it. Just like, yeah, we're badass. And he does great in this role as a volcanologist who, is still going through shit, because this is only... Yeah, it's 4 years later, but he's still mentally trying to recover from this. And there's certain scenes throughout that you can see him just still mentally processing that, and it's just like, fuck, man, I just feel bad for you. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we have the fantastic Linda Hamilton as Rachel Wanda, who, like I said before, Obviously starred in the first two Terminator movies before this, and yeah, she does great in this film as well. Being like slowly falling in love with Pierce's character, and I think they actually did slowly develop like a relationship or like a bonding at least over the filming of this movie, which really does help with our chemistry. And I'm like, yeah, that actually does help like a lot. We have Jamie Renee and Jeremy Fuller as Jamie Renee Smith and Jeremy Fuller, as Lauren and Graham Wanda, respectively. They're fine. It's like most kid actors are really just in general, but they're fine. Really, it's like, granted, they're like not as bad as they could have been. Like they could have been like really insufferable. But yeah. Yeah, don't mind me. I'm just doing this real quick. Then we have Elizabeth Hoffman as Ruth, who is the mother-in-law to Rachel. And as I mentioned before, she's just like one of those like stubborn old ladies that's just like, nothing's wrong with our town. It was useless for you to come up here and blah 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 blah. Whatever. But as that character, Elizabeth does great with that, with the material she's given. And we have Charles Hollowan as Paul Dreyfus, who, if you guys remember from, I think either the first or second year of my annual Halloween specials, you guys may remember that he played a certain role in John Carpenter's The Thing. Actually, yeah, speaking of which, yeah, that's him. Right there. Several years younger, but still the same guy. Yeah, he's gonna die later, so... At least die later in the film. Because it's like, yeah, you died in The Thing, you died in a whole bunch of other films. You're probably gonna die here as well. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, I guess really now to go on to favorite scenes, which is... It's actually kind of difficult in this movie because I enjoy it so much that it was so difficult to actually try and pinpoint favorite scenes. So I'm just going to say fuck it and say this whole movie's a favorite scene for me because it's so fucking good that I'm just like, I don't know, I can't pinpoint it for myself. But yeah, no, this film is really great. But if I had to pick one, I would have to go for... I'm just gonna say fuck it and just say the initial eruption of the volcano, because honestly, that's the big set piece that everyone if you're watching this film, it's like, okay, I expect a volcano eruption. It must be good, and yeah, it's fucking good. It really does sell the point of, the scene that's building up to it. It's basically all everyone in the town and the main characters are all basically sitting in the gym in the high school, and they're talking over about basically the evacuation plans. And I'll actually say this: my favorite shot in the entire movie is when Pierce's character is like, these are just precautionary measures, and we don't want to start a panic. And as soon as he says that, it's a close-up on his face with this water jug, those big giant water jugs that they have at restaurants to pour your water. It's basically one of those. So that's out of focus, and it's focusing on Pierce's face, and it's like, we don't want to start a panic. And it focuses on the cup, and it's like, and it's like, that's the moment for me where it clicks, and I'm just like, oh fuck, something's about to happen. And obviously, you see ooh, and it cuts back to all the scientist buddies that come along, and they're like, did anyone feel that? And all of a sudden, just, and everyone just starts fucking freaking out and running out of the gymnasium. And then obviously the shot that a few people were running on, it's like, oh my god, quick pans over, and you just see the pyrotechnic smoke cloud coming out of this volcano. It's like, holy fuck. It makes you feel like that you're actually there and you're like witnessing this volcano erupting, and it's like, holy shit. Which, now, let's talk about the special effects, because again, with these disaster films, that's pretty much like the big thing that you always talk about with these disaster films is the special effects, really. Because most of the time, with exceptions like this one, you don't really talk about the characters. You talk about the big explosion set pieces. So, you've had, most of them, this, again, like, kind of like Independence Day, this is one of those, mid to late 90s films that blends really well with mixing, like, CGI and practical effects, but most of the effects in this film are practical, which I do really love. If you guys seen a ton of my previous episodes, you guys know that I love practical effects, and seeing them used in this is just like, holy shit. Like, this is incredible, really. And, I think Digital Domain did most of the CGI bulk load in this film. And it does look great. Like, it does not look fake at all. Like, some, later, films I can think about. But, yeah, this does not feel fake to me. This looks real. And, actually, I think... Yeah. In fact, both of these fun facts are kind of talking about the visual effects in the film. But, yeah, I guess might as well go over it. So, yeah, basically, 90% of all the visual effects are practical. I can't really go over all of it because, honestly, I don't really remember all of it. So, like I said, after this review, go and check out Oliver Harper's review on this film. It will be the first link in the description below. And, he goes really more into depth about it. But needless to say that, 90% of the effects in this one, like I already said, are done in camera, practically, and they look amazing. Yeah, they might not be high upscale, for example, Independence Day Resurgence, like I mentioned earlier, that used no practical effects, all CGI, and yeah, the effects look bigger and badder, but that does not automatically make them look better than practical effects. Like, even Independence Day, the original one from '96, you compare the White House exploding, or the Eiffel Tower getting blown up by the ships. Those look amazing, even nowadays. But then you look at Independence Day Resurgence, which used no practical effects, like I said, and all CGI. That shit looks fake as fuck. And then you compare it to the original, where it's like, this looks like fucking Citizen Kane level mastery for visual effects. And then you look at this, Resurgence, it's over here, and this is just the biggest pile of dog shit ever. And then you look at, again, then you cut back to Independence Day, the original, and you're like, holy shit, this looks great. That's what I say about this film. You look at modern, not all modern, disaster films and CGI looks bad. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying, most of the time, it had that uncanny valley where that looks fake. Like Independence Day Resurgence. That looks kind of fake. Whereas this film, yeah, it's smaller scale, but it looks more real. It looks more effective. And to that, standard, this film, in terms of disaster, is more effective than any of the modern disaster films nowadays. So, yeah, sorry about that little rant. I just love practical effects so much that CGI now just looks so fake to me, and it just pisses me off that so many people, there's so many studios nowadays just forget about practical effects and just say, let's go for all CGI because that's way easier to do. And it's just it's a dying art that I feel like that more filmmakers and studios should get more back into. And I'm not saying that do all of them in camera, because there are sometimes where practically it looks fake. I can't lie about that. But at least go back to mixing the two well, and then you might have something. And then that's where, I feel like, me personally, that's where you could get, more attraction again, because it's like, wow, this visual effects look amazing, and then you learned about it and it's like, wow, maybe I can do that. But no, they just want to do more CGI because it's easier and more cost effective, and it's just kind of just bullshit nowadays. If you guys want to see what I'm talking about in terms of this film, like the visual effects, I think that the theatrical trailer that I will post on Instagram, because I am recording this. I obviously record all the videos before I put the trailers up, like, on, my Instagram pages and stuff like that. If you guys want to see what I'm talking about, maybe I hope that the trailer actually has some of those visual effects shots, because those will bring my point home about, yeah, mix the two, like mix CGI with practical effects, and there you go, you have a perfect blend of visual effects. Then you golden ticket to success right there. But yeah. So, and like speaking of the visual effects, like I said, basically all these both of the fun facts I have kind of relate to that. So all like after the first the first eruption happens, and you just see like all like the ash flying around, you're probably thinking like, how do they replicate volcanic ash without actually making volcanic ash? And it's actually kind of funny. It's basically the same it's the same stuff that they use to make insulation in houses. It's really fine newspaper shavings that they just cut up and they just blow away with the fans, like giant fans, and that's how you get your volcanic ash. Simple as that. Also, most of this film was actually shot in Idaho, to be more specific, Wallace, Idaho, and then the volcano was added in digitally, and I think like all like the signs that say like, oh, like welcome to Dante's Peak, was added digitally. Also, all of the crater shots, like actually all like the crater stuff that we see, like when we're inside it and like really up like close to it, it's all shots that were filmed at Mount St. Helens, which they actually do reference in the film several times, because Mount St. Helens eruption was, I think, the biggest, to this day, the biggest volcanic eruption ever, back in like 1980. I think 54 people got killed, and it wiped out like throughout like a whole bunch of forests and wiped out all the wildlife, and was basically the biggest catastrophic event in human history. Like nature, like catastrophic, like nature kind of catastrophic events. I don't know why that was so fucking hard for me to say. So like all the shots, for example, like when Harry Dalton like first arrives at Dante's Peak and he looks up at the volcano, that's a digital shot. But when later on in the film, like they're flying around the helicopter, that's shot at Mount St. Helens. So again, like I said, a very good blending of CGI and like in-camera stuff. That's how you do it. But now studios are just like, yeah, make it all CGI because it's cheaper. Fuck off, you. But yeah. So the music was done by John Frizzle, and strangely enough, the theme wasn't done by John, but it was done by James Newton Howard. I don't know exactly why he only did the main theme to Dante's Peak. Maybe my only guess is that he did some tracks for the movie, but the studio was just like, yeah, that's not good enough, so they got rid of him, but they kept the theme, but and then they hired John Frizzle to do the rest of the music, and the music does actually really work. I think it does actually, it is actually really good. There was a soundtrack release that was there was a soundtrack that was released to coincide with the film, but it only has, I think, about 30 minutes worth of John's score, and so far there has been no re-releases of the score officially. I think you can probably find the bootlegs online, but you can easily buy the original album release on like iTunes and like listen to it on like Spotify and stuff like that. And I think if you trying to go physically, it shouldn't be that hard to find because I think it was sold. very in very big quantities. So tracking it down physically shouldn't be that difficult. So I think that's about it. So final thoughts on Dante's Peak. I think it's really good. I think this is honestly better than Independence Day. You know, because Independence Day was just really more focusing on the, you know, the disasters in the film and like all the action. Whereas this film, it's like, yeah, the the volcano erupting is the main set piece, but the main focus is on the characters and the story, and that's what I love. So, you know, there are a few scenes throughout the film that are really kind of just nitpicky to piss, and I just get angry by it. Like, one, why the fuck did Ruth jump in the lake that is basically boiling hot water? And like, why the fuck would you jump in the boiling hot water? Like, I don't think anyone would do that. And it seems like Pierce's character was doing perfectly fine, just strolling with like the jacket because, okay, real quick. Basically, they go to Ruth's house to get her out. The lava comes in, destroys the house, and they're on this little motorboat. They all start singing together, and then they realize that the boat is slowly, like, because the water's starting to actually turn into like acid because like all the chemicals that are coming from the volcano, it's changing the water and making it basically boiling hot like acid. Then they look, and obviously the boat is melting, and then the motor stops, and he pulls the thing up, and then basically the whole motor thing is just gone, and it's just like a tiny little thing, and it's like, well, shit. And then they reach again, like I said, he starts strolling with pedaling with the jacket on around his hand, and I guess more of his arm, and he's pedaling, and it's like that's doing perfectly well. Why the fuck did Ruth jump in the fucking boiling hot water? And it's like there's a couple scenes like that just kind of irritate me, and honestly, that's why it doesn't get the A+. Because honestly, if those scenes were cut out, easy A+ with this film. But because of those scenes, it just barely misses the A+ mark. But it still is very worthy of an A rank. So that's what I'm giving this film. So, that was my review on Dante's Peak. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to get notified when future videos are coming out. I'm still trying to hit 130 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we're about 3 away so far. So, if we can get to that goal by the end of the year, that would be great. Also, make sure, if you guys want to see more of my content, you can click on my profile picture right here. Or click down on my username right there to go to my channel and check out some of the other reviews I've done, and you can check out the latest 2 videos right here. Also, follow me on my social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I often post on there to notify you guys early to when, videos are coming out. And then, also follow me on Twitch, because I do some occasional Twitch live streams as well. And also, like I said, once this review is done, go and check out Oliver Harper's video on this review. It goes way into more depth about the special effects and all that sort of stuff than I did. So, go and check that stuff out. But anyway, stay tuned for this Friday, where I'll be discussing the Jean-Claude Van Damme classic, Double Impact, released in 1991. So stay tuned for that, guys. Live long and prosper, and out.